Do you ever feel like you're stuck in that never-ending game of good cop, bad cop with your kids? Well, what if I told you there's a way to throw away the playbook and still raise amazing humans? Today, we're peeling back those layers of gentle parenting and unconditional love, so stay tuned. Hey parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self-care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important, unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's rock and talk. Welcome back, my friends, to our podcast, Fulfillment Therapy. I'm your host, Kendra Nielsen, and today we're talking about how to maximize your relationships in your family life in ways that might surprise you. I've been thinking so much about three concepts: gentleness, meekness, and unconditional love. The more that I am a counselor, the more that I'm a parent, the more that I am a spouse, the more that I realize that these three things completely transform marriage. And I'm going to talk to you about these things today. So let's begin and find out how we can incorporate these into our relationships ourselves. So these are qualities that create this environment of trust, that emotional security, and this healthy development for kids, while also strengthening the bonds between spouses. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because we talk about it in my church, and I just love the phrases, and it just something that repeats in my mind over and over. And it's just a very simple reminder of something very basic that I can do to take my relationships to the next level. And I want to talk about why it's so helpful, especially when things like gentleness and meekness and unconditional love, those sound like qualities of a doormat, and nobody wants to be a doormat when you're a parent or when you're a spouse, right? Well, that has nothing to do with those things, though they're often misconstrued. I want you to think about some of your most proud parenting moments: when you were gentle, when you were meek, when you showed that unconditional love or that kindness. And I think about every time that I had a problem with my husband or with one of my kids. And when I did follow through and I was gentle and I was meek, there was almost always this softening of other people in the room and this beauty that unfolded that was so rich and memorable. So we're going to talk about that today and how you can do it in simple ways in your home. It all comes down to that gentle parenting and nurturing with kindness. So gentle parenting emphasizes that connection, that understanding, and that respect. I have a few quotes today from L.R. Noce, and there are some beautiful things. So listen to this one to start with. He says, "It's not our job to toughen our children up to face a cruel and heartless world. It's our job to raise children who will make the world a little less cruel and heartless." I love that quote. It reminds me of something a family member once said about how their children were upset because they didn't prepare them for such a terrible world, or something very similar to what this quote is saying. And it broke their heart because they raised their children in this very magical and beautiful way. And I can attest to that. This person is an incredible parent. When I hear this quote, I think about their story and about how it's not our job to raise these tough humans, but to raise children who will make the world a little less cruel and heartless. I do believe that that's true. We are humans with complex needs and emotions. Rebecca Eanes says this: so often children are punished for being human. They are not allowed to have grumpy moods, bad days, disrespectful tones, or bad attitudes. Yet we adults have them all the time. None of us are perfect. We must stop holding our children to a higher standard of perfection than we can attain ourselves. That is so well said. I actually want to read it one more time because of how important it is. So often, children are punished for being human. They're not allowed to have grumpy moods, bad days, disrespectful tones, or bad attitudes. Yet we adults have them all the time. And none of us are perfect. We must stop holding our children to a higher standard of perfection than we can attain ourselves. Are we holding our kids to a standard of perfection that is unrealistic and unsustainable? That is so well said, and I find myself reminding my husband and my clients often of those same things. I often say things like, remember, this is very normal behavior for a third grader. Or remember what standard you're holding these people to. They're just little humans. They don't have adult brains yet. And even for us, we give ourselves the benefit of the doubt often enough, but not so much other people. Like, we're expecting such a high standard of people all the time that we don't put upon ourselves. And I know we can also do the same for ourselves, but in our family situations, that's not often what we're doing. This can be incredibly frustrating for our little people, our family members that we're raising, our kids. And one of my kids in particular, my youngest daughter, she feels so fully when she makes mistakes. And the other day, she was late for the bus because they currently have their school that's pretty far away. And sometimes, depending on morning traffic, it can take me 45 minutes to get there and back. And when I'm in the middle of trying to work, it can be really frustrating. And it was actually my birthday that morning. I finally had this free time to just write and do some of the things that I've been really looking forward to after feeling so sick for a while. And I was the only one available to take them. And I showed that frustration a little bit. And she was instantly apologetic, and you could see it in her face right away that she just felt awful and was very deflated when she saw that I was frustrated. And I knew instantly that it was unfair for me to be so upset because it's such a normal thing. I mean, we're talking just a couple minutes that she had taken to get some things finished on a paper, nothing very long. And the bus ended up coming a little bit earlier than they usually do. And she was a little bit later than she usually is, like not even 5 minutes. And it just happened that day. It was a normal mistake. And I reminded her of that. And I tried to share that gentleness and that meekness and remind her that we're all human. I do these things all the time and it's okay. And I can temper my response too, because really, what is 30 or 45 minutes? I wish I wouldn't have responded in frustration at all, just so she could remember that this is okay. This happens. Not that I can't show my frustration, but that we can talk through it and it doesn't have to be some terrible thing that she has done. It's okay. There's space for us to have mistakes regularly because we're all doing it. And it's not that we can't course correct or anything like that. Now let's talk about some other practical examples of that gentle parenting. We can respond calmly to one of our kids' tantrums and offer that comfort instead of just going straight to punishment. Or we can use positive reinforcement instead of just harsh discipline all the time. Or we can explain the reasons behind the rules and the expectations. I know grandparents didn't always do that, or even parents, but it is so much easier for people to get on board when they understand. And it's okay to talk to our kids about that. Now let's explore meekness a little bit. It really is a strength under control. And I think that meekness is often misunderstood. David A. Bednar said this about meekness: meekness is the principal protection for the prideful blindness that often arises from prominence, position, and power, as well as wealth, that is very packed with wisdom. So you might want to go back and read that again. But it's simply a principled protection against pride that we're seeking to eliminate. So in relationships, meekness manifests as being willing to listen without interrupting during disagreements or admitting mistakes and apologizing sincerely. It's putting your spouse's needs before your own or your children's. And I know that's not an easy thing to do, especially if you have a long to-do list and lots of things that you want to get done. But it's like my day the other day when it took 45 minutes out of my day to take the kids to school and come back. That's meekness, and it's recognizing that we're all human and we all make mistakes, but there's space for that. I'm going to share one more example of meekness in marriage that comes from Jenna's story. She said, meekness happened for us when we had to choose to let go and let God. We literally did that. We did the deep work and humbled ourselves in a way we've never had to before. We finally started acknowledging how our personal and joint actions were harming one another and our home. So this is one thing that you could do too. Can you let go? Can you allow God to take over? Can you do that deep work and humble yourself and acknowledge how your actions are impacting your family dynamic? Like maybe that wedge between you and your spouse, or that lack of forgiveness that you're giving, a grudge that you're holding, is affecting your home of peace. And it affects how you are interacting at home and how your family dynamic is. And maybe that family triangulation that is disconnecting others and that tension and discomfort that bring. Explore that. Is that something that you could do to improve the home dynamic by maybe being more meek and acknowledging your part and how you can improve things? Now, I want to talk briefly about unconditional love as well. And that is the bedrock of family relationships. When there is love without expectations or limitations, this is where people thrive. L.R. Nost says something else very beautifully. He said, remember, no matter the problem, kindness is always the right response. Think about your own situations when parenting or in your marriage, whatever it is. Was there ever a time when kindness would not have helped those challenges improve? Now, how can you show that unconditional love in your family? How can you show that kindness, that love without those parameters? We can separate a child's behavior from their inherent worth. We can express that love and that joy for who they are and not just for their achievements. And I know that's hard because we're such an achievement-driven society. So it's just our go-to sometimes, and we don't even realize we're doing it. We can support and comfort our kids even when they make mistakes, like when my daughter was late for the bus and she felt awful. Or I could choose to see her suffering and that feeling of feeling less than, and that she's a mess up and she's terrible. I could try to put myself in her shoes when she's feeling that way and about how she put other people out and just felt so bad. And I could recognize that, man, she's just a little kid making normal mistakes that we all made, and it's okay. And I can love her regardless of that. And I can help her in her distress and her feelings of shame, and I can help her work through those. I can not worry about my own stuff as much. I can think less of myself and more of my family, and how we all need that extra help and that compassion and that unconditional love when we make mistakes. As one of my clients chose to unconditionally love her child, and despite how many mistakes that child made because he had harmed a lot of other people as he was an older teen, my client chose to focus on who he was at his core and, more importantly, who he would become. So she made this effort to choose to see him as he was becoming and what he'd become even more so in the future. And think of what that did, because it did change that dynamic over time, not overnight, but it did happen over time. And as she started to treat him differently, he began to change in how he showed up and in their interaction. And he started to see more in himself as well. Just think of that in your relationships. If you can start to treat each other as you're meant to be as you're becoming or as you will become someday instead of the screw up that you are all the time or that you assume the other person is all the time? How will that cause you to transform just by knowing that somebody sees the good within you? So here's just a quick tip for you. I want you to think of times when you felt unconditionally loved and treated as you are to become. There's probably somebody in your mind that's highlighted as treating you that way. So how did that make you feel? And can you think of a time like that? How did that change the trajectory of your life? And can you do that same thing for your spouse or your child or other people in your sphere of influence? Just think about how you might do that in a small, simple way and how that can completely change another person's life, just like it might have changed yours. All right, my friends, just remember, as we incorporate that gentleness, that meekness, and that unconditional love into our parenting and into our relationships, we can transform our family dynamics and heal that generational pain. And as we practice these virtues, this will happen. And we can create a safer, more nurturing environment for our kids to grow and to thrive. And we can break those cycles of harsh parenting and conditional love, but foster those healthier environments that will improve future generations. L.R. Knowles also said this very wisely. Life is amazing, and then it's awful, and then it's amazing again. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living a heartbreaking, soul-healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. And it's breathtakingly beautiful. My friends, when we embrace these principles, we create this legacy of love and compassion, as well as this emotional well-being for our families and the world around us. And it is no small task, but it is so rewarding and worthwhile. So take the time to practice this gentleness and this meekness and this unconditional love, because it will bear amazing fruit. And just like L.R. Knowles said, it will be breathtakingly beautiful. Have a wonderful week, my friends. I'll see you back here in just a few days. And don't forget to go to fulfillmenttherapy.org under contact, and you can become part of our email list and be introduced to new offers as they come and tips every week on how to take your family life to the next level. So go ahead and sign up for that online. Otherwise, check out our show notes and you can find all the details and find out how to find us in all the places there. Take care. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you, no matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.